More than 3 decades after a young mother in Australia's life was ended, the police have made an arrest. 24-year-old Samantha Mizzi was a single mother living in Castlemaine, Victoria, in Australia. To support her 2 children, Stephen and Tennille, she occasionally worked as a lady of the night in St Kilda, Melbourne. On March 28, 1994, Samantha traveled to St Kilda to earn money and left her children in a friend's care. At 8:30 p.m., she visited an amusement center at Inkerman Street and Brighton Road, ordered a milkshake, and left her belongings there temporarily. Shortly after 9:50 p.m., she was seen speaking with a man near Blanche Street on Brighton Road. The man was described as Caucasian, around 182 centimeters tall, thin build, gray hair parted to the left, wearing a fawn-colored zip-up jacket and slacks. Between 10 and 10:30 p.m., neighbors reportedly heard Samantha scream several times. Around 11 p.m., a passerby found her badly injured and unconscious among bushes behind a property at 333 Brighton Road. She had suffered a violent, indecent assault, was severely beaten with a blunt object, stripped naked, and her belongings stolen. The weapon was not recovered. She was taken to the Alfred Hospital but passed away the next morning. The case remained unsolved for over 30 years. The police issued multiple public appeals in 2021, 2023, and 2025, urging anyone with information to come forward. Crime Memorial and public forums, including Reddit, helped keep the case alive. The breakthrough in the case came thanks to advances in investigative technology, including DNA analysis and genetic genealogy. On August 14, 2025, Victoria Police's squad arrested a 67-year-old man, Colin George McCain, in Ararat, charging him with ending Samantha's life and 2 counts of indecent assault. He appeared in Melbourne Magistrates Court and was remanded in custody, with his next court date scheduled for December 18, 2025. Samantha's children, Stephen and Tennille, were present at the court. They expressed gratitude for the arrest, while acknowledging that they would need time to process this long-awaited development. Stephen said, "We are very grateful this person is in custody. We are going to take some time as a family to process everything. We have got a long journey ahead." Detective Inspector Dean Thomas emphasized the long arm of justice. It does not matter how many years have passed. Progress can be made, providing families with long-needed answers. Thomas said, "If there are people out there who have information about a crime such as this, no matter how many years have passed, I can assure you that it is never too late to come forward." The authorities have not shared further details about what led to the arrest, but said that the investigation into her demise remains ongoing. A family finally has closure after nearly 25 years, thanks to the Pueblo County Sheriff's Office. On October 14, 2000, a woman on horseback stumbled upon a makeshift campsite roughly 1 mile north of the Walking Stick housing development in Pueblo, Colorado. There, she discovered skeletal remains lying atop a sleeping bag, along with an unused tent, a second sleeping bag, clothing, several canteens, and other personal items, but no identification. A forensic anthropologist was called in to assess the remains. Based on skeletal analysis, the investigators estimated that the individual was of mixed ancestry, possibly Black, Hispanic, or Asian. The investigators estimated that the man was 6 feet 1 inches tall and weighed 150 pounds. He passed away approximately 2 months prior to the discovery of his remains. Physical features including degenerative joint disease, spinal arthritis, fused bones in the right foot, and an infection, a sign of a noticeable limp. His teeth were nearly perfect, with no fillings. A few pieces of paper were found with the decedent. One contained typed telephone numbers for Spanish Peaks mental health centers, and another had addresses of homeless shelters in the Denver area. The following year, in 2001, the University of Colorado provided a facial reconstruction, a clay bust, to the media, hoping it would aid identification, but it yielded no leads. An investigation was launched, and a forensic composite was developed to depict how the man may have looked during his life. Details of the case were entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. During the course of the investigation, a witness told the investigators that he encountered a man camping on the open range in August 2000, who stated that he was from Albuquerque and was working his way to Denver. The man had dreadlocks in his hair that were about 4 to 6 inches long. Unfortunately, the case eventually went cold. In 2021, 2 decades later, the sheriff's detectives reopened the case and began investigating. As the investigation continued, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and Pueblo County Sheriff's Office collaborated to submit evidence to Othram's laboratory, where scientists developed a comprehensive DNA profile for the man. This, combined with a DNA sample of items and evidence found at the campsite, was sent to the CBI, and a new DNA sample was submitted to a genetic genealogy database in 2023. In November 2024, that sample came back and matched a sample in the data set with a distant family member. The detectives collected DNA from the family member, and in June 2025, it came back as a positive match. It was verified by a forensic investigative genetic genealogist that the man found was Marvin Majors. Marvin lived a transient lifestyle, and his family had not heard from him since 1998 or 1999. Marvin's family expressed appreciation for the sheriff's office's work over the past 2.5 decades and was thankful for bringing this case to a close. His cause of demise was never identified. However, the sheriff's office said that foul play was not suspected. A man has finally been identified as a perpetrator in a 1984 North Carolina cold case. On November 19, 1984, at approximately 3:12 p.m., officers responded to a missing persons call for service in the 8000 block of Eaglewind Drive in Charlotte, North Carolina. The victim, 26-year-old Sandra Elaine Sandee Cornett, was reported missing by a neighbor after she did not show up for work. Sandee was a part-time model and insurance adjuster. Several months into the investigation of her disappearance, then 36-year-old Larry Jean Bell was identified as a suspect in her case. Bell was interviewed by investigators from multiple agencies, but he was not charged. 6 months after Sandee vanished, in May 1985, Bell abducted and took the life of a 17-year-old girl in South Carolina. 2 weeks after that, in June 1985, he did the same to a nearby 9-year-old girl. While holding the 17-year-old captive and making her write a will, Bell taunted her family with several phone calls. Both bodies were found after Bell anonymously called the police to tell them precisely where they were located. He suffocated the girls with duct tape. After Bell was arrested in the young girls' demises, he told the police that when they find Sandee's body, the bones of her hands and fingers will be like she is praying. He also described in detail what her home, the scene of her disappearance, looked like when the police found it. His precise description was something only her perpetrator would know. After Sandee disappeared, her bank card was used to withdraw about $1,000. In July 1985 interviews with Bell, he gave accurate details of those transactions. The detectives established that Sandee knew Bell, a former Eastern Airlines reservations agent, through an ex-boyfriend of hers who worked with Bell. The officers never charged Bell with any crimes related to Sandee's disappearance. Bell was later convicted of the 2 cases in South Carolina and was given the end-of-life penalty. He was executed on October 4, 1996. In February 2025, CMPD's Cold Case Unit, with funding from the National Assault Kit Initiative, completed a full review of the casework and evidence gathered over the past 4 decades. The detectives consulted with the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office as part of this review. After completion, the detectives determined that Bell kidnapped and took Sandee's life. He would have been charged if still alive. The detectives have cleared this case as demise of offender. Sandee's family has been notified of these developments. Sandee's remains have never been located, and she remains listed as missing in multiple national databases, including NamUse. Anyone with information is encouraged to contact the CMPD Cold Case Unit at 704-432-1600. TIPS. A mystery that haunted the Virginia detectives for more than half a century has finally been solved with the help of forensic genealogy. On June 13, 1972, the body of a young boy estimated to be around 4 years old was found beaten till his end in Massey Creek under a bridge near Lorton, Virginia. An autopsy revealed that the cause of demise was blunt force trauma, and it was ruled that his life was ended. No identification was made at the time. With no immediate leads, a local church group gave the unidentified child the name Charles Lee Charlet and arranged for his burial at Coleman Cemetery in Alexandria, Virginia. The case then unfortunately went cold. In 2004, more than 3 decades later, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released a facial reconstruction image of the boy. This generated the most tips ever received for a case in Virginia, but still no leads emerged. In 2021, advances in forensic-grade genome sequencing allowed the investigators to extract usable DNA from just a few millimeters of hair found on the boy's remains. The Fairfax police explained that the DNA led the detectives to a family in Philadelphia, who told authorities that their deceased relative, Vera Bryant, had a 4-year-old son who went missing after she and her boyfriend left with their 2 young children for Virginia in 1972. The boy's name was Carl Matthew Bryant. Vera had passed away in 1980, but her remains were exhumed in 2023, and DNA testing confirmed in August 2025 that she was indeed the mother. The investigators believe that Vera, along with her boyfriend James Hedgepeth, a convicted perpetrator with a violent history, were responsible for Carl's demise. Vera and her boyfriend were traveling from Philadelphia to his relatives in Middlesex County, Virginia, with the 2 boys. However, when the couple arrived, they did not have her sons with them. Then, over Thanksgiving in 1972, when the couple visited Vera's family in Philadelphia, Vera allegedly told them the children were in Virginia with James's family. The couple never reported the boys missing. Both individuals are now deceased. It is also suspected that Carl's 6-month-old brother, James Bryant, was slain around the same time and may have been disposed of along their travel route. His remains have yet to be found. Fairfax County Police marked the identification of Carl as a pivotal closure to a 53-year-old mystery. Detective Melissa Wallace said, "He can have his name. We can get him his name back on his gravestone and the family can have some semblance of closure or resolution." The investigators are actively seeking help to locate James Bryant's remains or gather further information. Anyone with details, especially regarding 1970s unidentified infant remains in Virginia or Philadelphia, is urged to contact the Fairfax County Major Crimes Bureau. Remains found in 1980 remained unidentified for 45 years, until forensic science finally helped identify the man. In April 1980, 20-year-old Danny Mitchell was reported missing. He was last seen at a house on Euclid Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. He was described as 5 feet 7 inches, 150 pounds, wearing blue jeans, an orange-flowered shirt, and a black jacket, and he carried his 1978 John Adams High School class ring. For 37 years, the case went cold. That is, until 2017, when Danny's family happened to see a press conference held by the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation about an unidentified man found in Twinsburg, Ohio, in 1982. Danny's family thought it may be him, so they submitted DNA, hoping for answers. Their DNA were not a match to the body, and the man found in Twinsburg was later identified as someone else. But Danny's family renewed interest in his case, leading the BCI to add his information into the National Missing and Unidentified Missing Persons System. Then, 3 years later, in 2020, the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office added John Doe 1980 to NamUs. That entry prompted a possible match and raised a new question. In May 1980, a body was discovered in a Cleveland building slated for demolition. Bound with an electrical cord, the remains were unrecognizable. Though the cause of demise was undetermined, the medical examiners believed that the remains belonged to a black male between the ages of 18 to 30. They named him John Doe 1980. The investigators tried to use DNA to find an answer, but because of limited evidence, they were not able to confirm that the two cases were connected. Still, they did not give up. Another 2 years later, in 2022, the team reached out to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for help. NCMEC worked with Danny's siblings to collect DNA and coordinated with the investigators to send hair samples, which was the only available evidence in this case, to Astria Forensics. Astria Forensics is a lab that specializes in difficult cases. The first round of testing came back incomplete. They did not have enough DNA to confirm a match. Then, in October 2024, NCMEC received funding through the Children's Justice Project to try again. This time, the testing worked. Astria Forensics was able to build a suitable DNA profile from the Cleveland case. From there, they shared the profile with Innovative Forensic Investigations, who compared it to DNA from Danny's siblings by uploading it to GED Match Pro. Then finally, after more than 4 decades of questions, in April 2025, the results were confirmed. The man found in Cleveland in 1980 was Danny Mitchell. The mystery that had prompted the investigators for nearly 45 years was finally solved. He was last seen less than a quarter mile from the building where his remains was located. Jennifer Lester, the BCI criminal intelligence analyst who worked on Danny's case, thanked NCMEC for their support. She also said that in working with his family, they shared that he was a wonderful person. She said, "He loved church, he loved dancing, singing, and he loved his family." In the early 2000s, a chilling wave of disappearances swept through the St. Louis, Illinois area. Women, most struggling with hardship or living on society's margins, vanished without a trace. What connected these women? At first glance, nothing other than geography and timing. But beneath the surface lurked a predator. On March 11th, 2002, a body was discovered along Interstate 70 near Highland, Illinois. On March 28th, 2002, road workers found skeletal remains in a remote creek bed near Columbia, Illinois, off Route 3. That same year, near Mascoutah, Illinois, another woman's remains surfaced. Another Jane Doe. Another mystery. The investigators were quick to notice similarities in the 3 Jane Doe cases. All 3 women were black, all found in rural Illinois, not far from major highways, all slain in a similar time frame. The specter of a serial perpetrator loomed large. As the police scrambled for answers, a shocking name emerged. Maury Troy Travis, a 36-year-old man from Ferguson, Missouri. In May 2002, the investigators searched Travis's home and uncovered a dungeon-like basement, complete with torture devices, videotapes of assaults, and chilling evidence linking him to multiple cases. Travis, a sadistic predator, is believed to have ended the lives of at least 12 women, possibly more. He kept macabre trophies and taunted the police with anonymous letters and maps. But before law enforcement could extract the full truth, Travis hanged himself in jail in June 2002, leaving countless unanswered questions and unidentified victims. The women found in Illinois were strongly suspected to be among his victims, but without names, the investigators could not close the cases or notify families. For decades, the Jane Does remained nameless. In 2014, their cases were entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, but no breakthroughs came. Between 2022 and 2025, the Illinois State Police partnered with Southern Illinois University Edwardsville students and genetic genealogy experts. They extracted DNA from the decades-old remains and uploaded profiles to genealogical databases. Matches began to surface. A son's DNA confirmed Carol Jean Hemphill's identity in early 2025. By February 24, 2025, she officially had her name back. In March 2025, the Columbia Police Department announced the news to the public. Carol, a 44-year-old mother, was last seen on July 27, 2001. She told her daughter that she was heading to a nearby store and never returned. Her family searched desperately, but she seemed to have vanished into thin air. Then, in July 2025, the investigators confirmed 2 more names, Crystal Alicia Lay and Kelly Johnson. Decades after their end, the mystery was finally unraveling. Crystal, only 19 years old, disappeared in early 2002. Young, vulnerable, and full of promise, Crystal's disappearance left loved ones shattered. Kelly, also from the same area, was last seen sometime in 2002. Little was documented publicly about her disappearance at the time, as it blended into the growing number of missing person reports across the region. The identifications brought bittersweet closure to families who had waited more than 2 decades for answers. But they also reopened old wounds and old fears. The authorities firmly believe all 3 women were victims of Travis. But because he passed away in 2002, he will never stand trial and never confess to the full scope of his crimes. Still, identifying these women restores dignity, accountability, and a measure of justice. These cases are not just about tragedy. They highlight the power of forensic genealogy and cold case persistence. For the families of Carol, Crystal, and Kelly, the journey is far from over. At least their loved ones are no longer lost in anonymity. A man was fatally shot, but before he passed away, he was able to describe the event to the authorities. It still took 14 years to solve his case. Truman Lee Smith, a 40-year-old delivery driver from Irondale, Missouri, was fatally shot on February 17, 2011, in East St. Louis on the 2600 block of McCausland Avenue during what appears to have been an attempted robbery. While he was on the job making a delivery, he was approached by an armed individual demanding money. He managed to describe the event before succumbing to his injuries. The Illinois State Police Division of Criminal Investigation Zone 6 took over and maintained the investigation as a cold case for approximately 14 years. Throughout these years, Truman's mother, Jeanette Smith, called ISP every month to ensure the case remained active and was not forgotten. In the spring of 2025, a breakthrough emerged. In a groundbreaking partnership, criminal justice students from Southern Illinois University Edwardsville worked alongside ISP agents to review cold case files, including Truman's. Their work, using investigative genetic genealogy and a solvability matrix, was instrumental in advancing the investigation. On July 22, 2025, at a press conference held at the Metro East Forensic Science Laboratory in Belleville, the officials announced that first-degree slaying charges had been filed against 34-year-old Alan Davis of East St. Louis. ISP Director Brendan Kelly, SIUE, Professor Trish Oberweis, graduate Riley Franklin, and Jeanette spoke about the significance of the student-police collaboration. IUE's involvement not only helped move Truman's case, but also aided in identifying previously unidentified victims in other cold cases. Jeanette expressed that while charges are a crucial step toward justice, they do not erase the pain. She said, "This does not give us closure. When the case is over and there is justice made, then the case will be closed, but it will not be closure for us." In 1965, the lives of 2 West Ryde Australian families were plagued by unimaginable loss. It was the height of summer in Sydney, Australia. 2 best friends, Marianne Schmidt and Christine Sharrock, both 15 years old, set off for what should have been an ordinary day at the beach. Marianne was one of 6 children from a German migrant family living in West Ryde. Her father was hospitalized at the time, and her mother worked to support the family. Christine was staying with the Schmidts during the school holidays, and the 2 girls were inseparable. That morning, the girls took Marianne's younger siblings to Cronulla Beach by train. After arriving, the group decided the main beach was too crowded and moved toward Wanda Beach, a more secluded area with large sand dunes. At some point, the younger children were left playing while the girls wandered off, reportedly saying they would return soon. Witnesses later recalled seeing the 2 girls accompanied by a tall, thin teenage boy with fair hair. The trio was spotted heading into the sand dunes away from the water. This was the last confirmed sighting of Marianne and Christine alive. The younger siblings eventually left the beach and returned home without the girls, assuming that they had gone back separately. When the girls failed to come home that night, a frantic search began. The following day, a man walking through the dunes discovered a grisly scene. The bodies of Marianne and Christine were lying partially buried in the sand. Both were brutally attacked. They had suffered multiple stab wounds, their throats were slashed, and there were indications of indecent assault. Their belongings were scattered, and drag marks in the sand showed that they had been moved after their lives were ended. The investigators determined that the attack was savage and prolonged. One girl appeared to have tried to run but was dragged back. The weapon used in the attack was never found, but it is believed to have been a knife. The case shocked Australia and triggered a massive police investigation. The detectives interviewed hundreds of people who were at the beach that day. The description of the blonde teenage boy became a focal point, but no concrete leads emerged. Over the years, several men became persons of interest, including Christopher Wilder, an Australian who later became a notorious serial perpetrator in the US, but no solid evidence linked him to the Wanda case. Another suspect, Alan Bassett, a convicted perpetrator who later claimed knowledge of the case, but the police could not corroborate his claims. Other suspects included local men with violent histories, but none were charged. Despite new forensic techniques and DNA analysis decades later, the case remained unsolved. DNA testing failed to identify a perpetrator due to the age of the evidence. For decades, the Wanda Beach case have cast a long shadow over Australia. Parents became more protective. Beaches that once symbolized freedom now carried a whisper of danger. And for the families of Marianne Schmidt and Christine Sharrock, the grief never faded. Two best friends set out for a carefree day in the sun. Instead, they became victims of one of the most chilling crimes in Australian history. Some investigators believe that the perpetrator was a local who knew the dunes well. Others suspected a stranger who saw an opportunity. Despite countless theories and extensive media coverage, the case remained unsolved. But a breakthrough did come in August 2025. A new investigation into the backpacker perpetrator, Ivan Millat, was launched. The police sketch of the suspect looks incredibly similar to him. A parliamentary inquiry would investigate whether Millat was responsible for dozens of unsolved cases throughout Australia, mainly of young women. Millat was convicted in 1996 of ending the lives of 7 backpackers whose bodies were found in the Belanglo State Forest in the New South Wales Southern Highlands. He was sentenced to life in prison and passed away in jail in 2019. The investigators are hopeful that they can solve Marianne and Christine's case. They would have been 75 years old in 2025.